Let's bring this June the 10th, 2021 Dickson County Planning Commission meeting to order, please. Mr. Qualls, would you give devotion, please, sir?
Let's pray. Righteous God and Holy Father, help us as we come here together to conduct the business of this county in a way that's pleasing and in accordance with your will. Bless those that are gathered here. Be with us as we proceed safely back to our own homes if it's in accordance with your will. Direct us in your steps. For it's in your powerful and mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Darnell, would you call roll, please, sir?
Todd Berry.
Here.
Robert Witherow.
Here.
Jeff Spencer.
Here.
Mike Pilkington.
Here.
Robert Qualls.
Here.
David Brogdon.
Here.
Harold Williams.
Here.
Shane Chandler.
Here.
Gary Peeler.
Here.
Christy Sullivan.
Here.
Wayne Durham.
Here.
Robert Comer.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. We have all in attendance.
Yeah.
And I,
And live in person, you can have voice vote.
well, you get a thank you. How about that? Like to remind everybody, including myself, please mute your telephones. At this time, I'd like to recognize the visitors and you all in the crowd. If you did not sign in, please do so as you exit at the podium. We move into the approval of the minutes. Everybody look over the minutes. It's quite lengthy this time.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Have a motion by Robert Woodrow to accept the minutes. Do I have a second? Second by Robert Qualls. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move into the items. Item number 1 is preliminary plat for phase 2 of the Donald R. Duke subdivision, tax map 075, part of parcel 11.01, 3.69 acres, Ridge Road, Dickson, Tennessee, A1 Agriculture, 1st District.
Okay, this was surveyed by Christie Surveying to create 3 new lots, which are lots 3 through 5. Lots 1 and 2 were created on a separate plat dated November of last year, 2020. This area is serviced by the Water Authority of Dickson County. A 6-inch water line is shown on the plat, but in the email, which you have a copy of from Michael Rogers, he is listing it as an 8-inch water line. We'll have verification of the exact size before the final plat. I don't know if Darren has got any.
Yes, David, I looked at it when I got back to the office, and the drawing that Mike sent me was an 8-inch line. So I already changed it in final for my computer.
So it is an 8-inch water line, and they have already paid for the fire hydrant that is shown on the plat. Now, as you know, Brian Collins not here tonight. Some of his comments were under the preliminary plat review. The parent parcel contained approximately 44.8 acres, of which 3.69 acres are proposed for this subdivision and is zoned A1. Ridge Road is classified as a minor collector road per the Dickson County Major Thoroughfare map. Under planning issues, this is in the county's planned growth area where moderate to high density residential development is expected or projected. Under zoning issues, he has the A1 standards, which is what this area is zoned. It appears to him that the remaining acreage with the homestead agricultural activity will be inhibited from further division unless the private drive is upgraded to accommodate future lots. On his note there in phase 1 of the subdivision, which was recorded in November 2020, lot 2 does have a 50-foot wide easement for access and utilities within a portion of the parent parcel's remaining acreage. Under plat issues, you got drainage. According to contours provided, it appears the natural drainage pattern descends from the roadway and towards the pond located on the remaining acreage. To minimize any negative impact to each lot as well as the public road during storm events, staff recommends a carefully designed system to ensure this natural drainage pattern will not be disrupted, including ditching and driveway culverts, which are listed as note number 5 on the plat. The line of sight, you also see you'll have a note on there, note 3, providing distances between the driveways for lot 3 and 4 to accommodate the distance. On his plat issue under number C, he has it listed as Soviet Tennessee Pond. It is the Water Authority, and we've just clarified that it is an 8-inch water line, and the fire hydrant has been paid for. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. This is the 1st District. What is the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the preliminary plat, Donald R. Duke subdivision phase 2.
Okay. I have a motion by Todd Berry for the approval of the preliminary plat. Do I have a second? I'm sorry, who was that? Jeff Spencer?
Yes.
Have a second by Jeff Spencer. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move into item number 2. Is preliminary plat for phase 1 of Park Forest subdivision, tax map 136, parcels 021.00 and part of parcel 018.00, 41.85 acres, Tidwell Switch Road, Dickson, Tennessee, A1 agriculture. This will be the 7th district.
Okay, this was surveyed by Ayler and Associates for Southern Consulting to create 35 new lots in phase 1. Phase 1 will also include construction of 4 new roads equaling about 0.6 of a mile. This area is serviced by the Water Authority of Dickson County. A 6-inch water line runs along Tidwell Switch. It will be extended into the development with as many as 5 new fire hydrants. In the email from Michael Rogers, you also see there's no issues providing water service to this, but at this time, no sureties have been paid for the hydrants or extension of the line. Now, under Mr. Collins' comments, you'll see the under map 136, parcel 21, it consists of approximately 45.7 acres, and parcel 18 consists of approximately 65 acres, of which 3.77 acres will be used for right-of-way and utilities. The property is currently zoned A1. Both properties are currently listed as pasture land and woodland. Tidwell Switch is also classified as a minor collector road per the major thoroughfare map. Under planning issues, this falls in the city of Dixon's urban growth boundary. And if at any time it is annexed by the city of Dixon, the land will be subject to the city's local standards. Under zoning issues, bulk standards, this is A1 zone, and it does meet the minimum requirements for that. Under plat issues, you have drainage, which according to the contours provided, it appears the natural drainage pattern descends from the roadway and southward towards 2 natural drainage swales, of which converge near an existing water course stream buffer provided over a portion encompassing the proposed lots 12 and 13. That eventually empties into the North Fork of Bear Creek further southward. There's also a small pond located on the property. Have talked to them, and they are going to fill that in. That was one question that he had brought up. To minimize any legal negative impact, he suggested adding the ditching note to the driveway culverts. It appears, let's see, there's 4 new minor status roads to be constructed during the first phase. Phase 2 will be for future development, at which time they may add a new cul-de-sac. At this point with the first phase, you'll see there is 2 entrances into the new subdivision. Of course, you have about the Water Authority line. His main concerns were, will the pond remain, and they add the ditching note to the driveway culverts. Another issue which you do see on this plat is a centralized cluster mailbox service. This is something in the last year or 2 that the Postal Service on new subdivisions is going to require. It's not something we currently have in our regulations. It will be just done in the future as a pass-through item. We don't have any say-so. It's between the developer and the Postal Service of the size of what is required. Our only main concern is that there's going to be some kind of parking area to allow people access to this.
Will there be any kind of lighting for that?
I have this information downstairs, and none of them show any lighting. It's just the size of the boxes and how, what is going to be required at this point.
Are they gonna be there at curve 7 and 8, that sort of aided looking thing there?
Yeah, if you'll see, there's a place on there where it's listed as you come in on the main.
I mean, is that something we could add? I just feel like
Okay, in
any
the
of these
mailboxes, right
mailboxes.
across from it.
Well, we don't have any say-so on it.
No.
It's strictly between, the information I have is strictly between the developer and the Postal Service.
Right.
And
I
if
mean,
they
I'm
have
just saying
smaller-
from a safety point of view.
Well, we can require, no, they have to be pretty much set close to the thing where they can drive up and not get out of the truck.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, good.
unless they have an area that's designed. Their idea is not to get bit by dogs and all that. I've got a pamphlet they've sent me downstairs.
So it's not one of those block style like you would
It can
think.
be, but it has to be based on the size of the subdivision of what they're going to require.
Okay.
And I do have copies, which I can eventually get, download and email you a copy of all the information from that.
So the idea is the mailboxes or the mailbox cluster will be on one side and that semicircle will be where folks will be able to park.
Yes, I think that's what you had in mind. Yes, yeah,
It is.
yeah.
It also gives a turnaround for the post office.
Right. Because their goal is they're going to do away with the door-to-door delivery in the subdivisions.
And they only have one for this whole subdivision?
Yes, and that's pretty common in the postal book. Depending on how many houses will be there, they'll decide what size has to be there. It could be one unit, maybe several units. That's between the developer and the postal service. If it
Yeah,
doesn't meet their standards, they won't deliver the mail.
There's something like that already set up at that development off of,
Wyvern
yeah, but
Downs
also
has it
off
in
of
the
Gum
city.
Branch
Right.
Road,
Yes.
too.
Right, which that's in the city. We don't have any in the
No, I
county
understand that in
currently,
the
but
city,
that's
but-
what everything's going to go to,
But
yes.
if anybody needs to take a look at what that would look like,
Correct,
that's one
Correct.
example.
Yeah.
Now, I do
Wyvern
have the book
Downs.
available downstairs, which gives a list.
Wyvern Downs?
Yes,
They've had authority to do this for years and now they're just.
they're pushing it because the mail service is going to do away with all the individual delivery.
That's why I'm asking one that's pretty small.
And Mr. Collins' last note is he recommended a homeowners association, or at least an organization that would be responsible for the maintenance of it. Postal Service will not do the maintenance on it.
They won't do the maintenance on the mailbox?
No.
Is that something we decide on preliminary or final?
Well, that's just a requirement. We don't have anything in the planning regulations about that. That's just between the developer and but that's going to be a part that he suggests. That's strictly up to the commission. Somebody has to be responsible for it, but it won't be the Postal Service. Mr. Chairman?
7th District, what's the will of the commission?
I mean, if there's no other discussion, as far as a preliminary plat goes for a subdivision, this looks certainly more
Of
than
course, it hasn't been
acceptable.
soils mapped yet, so you don't.
Oh,
really
no,
know.
I understand. Yeah. But as far as preliminary plats go, this is
Correct.
a subdivision off of a road with its own roads and.
Right, correct.
Do you have a comment? Ron?
I want to throw out something that's so exceptionally minor, I hesitate to bring it up, but if it got skipped, it would look bad later. Under certificate of approval for recording, it's still listed as the Chris and Marshall Lucas plat subdivision, and that needs to be amended to Phase 1 Park Forest subdivision.
Correct.
Okay.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat Phase 1 Park Forest subdivision with the stipulation that.
It will be
the-
corrected by the final plat.
Yes, the name is corrected in the final plat.
I will second that. Are you making stipulations to the clarity of who maintenances the mailboxes?
See, they will also be required to get 2 bids on the roads
Yeah.
before the final plat.
Yeah, to answer your question, no, not at this time. I mean, I think, we can maybe get some more information between
Right.
now and when this
Yeah.
comes to us as a final plat.
Okay, so I have a proper motion by Harold Williams to approve this with the plat corrections, and proper second by Shane Chandler. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, on this mailbox issue, as we're going to see more of these, and the committee that we have, myself, Mr. Comer, and Mr. Brogdon, and a couple more, this may be something we may need to address on as well.
Well, we'll have to address it if they're not going to do it any longer the way they've been doing it.
Right, we're gonna have to address this, and I don't know whether the homeowner, whether we're gonna have to require, somebody's gonna have to take care of it somewheres down the line. 10 years from now, there's gonna be some heathen kid's gonna come by there with a ball bat and beat the crap out of it. Who's gonna fix it? Okay? So we need to answer that question before we, give the final on this. But I was talking to Mr. Barry here. behind the scenes. We are desperate for things like this, and I'm so glad to see this come. Thank you.
You see, they will require 2 bids on the roads before the final, and of course, whatever the commission decides, 10% will be added to that for the road bonds. Plus the sureties for the water line and the fire hydrants.
Okay, we do have a proper motion and a second. Any further discussion? Question been called. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. We'll move into item number 3, preliminary plat for White Oak subdivision, tax map 104, parcel 024.008.29 acres, Highway 70, in Dewey Drive, Dickson, Tennessee, A1 Agricultural, 9th District.
Okay, this was surveyed by XL Land Company to create a 9-lot tract subdivision. Part of this property falls within the jurisdiction of the city of Dickson. You will see included in your pack was a letter from them yielding everything to the county standards. You'll also see a new cul-de-sac off of Highway 70 will serve the 5 lots on the south side of the development. Included in Michael Rogers' email, you will see that the lines from the Water Authority end at the fire hydrant on Highway 70. The water on the Dewey Drive side is from the Sylvia, Tennessee City Pond Utility District. The Water Authority will release its rights to City Pond to service the whole development, but I don't have an update from them at this time if they're willing to do that. Next, you have everybody's aware of the entrance to Dewey Drive. In the handouts tonight, you'll see a blown up version of it, a copy of the resolution when the road was originally dedicated in 2009. It listed it as being 3/10 of a mile. The Highway Department has gone out there and measured it. It's 104 foot short. I had a meeting with the Highway Department and the county attorney last week. And at this point, the county will be responsible to extend the Dewey Drive part to the correct length. But they will not do the cul-de-sac or where the Lloyd Lane area is. Then the question was brought up, who actually owns the part where Lloyd Lane is? And it was brought that probably the original developer would. At this point, the cul-de-sac is only 63 foot wide. And on Mr. Collins' notes, let's see, this parent parcel contains approximately 33.6 acres and is zoned A1 agricultural. And at this time, it's used for pasture land and woodland. Highway 770 is classified as a principal arterial road for the county major thoroughfare map, while Dewey Drive is considered a minor status road. The land in this area is a mixture of rural, residential, agricultural, and timberland activities as in the city of Dixon's urban growth boundary. If annexed by the city, the land will be subject to the local standards. With the addition of new road, he makes it, he states, well, both lots and tracts are all going to be part of one subdivision because of the addition of new roads. Let's see. Under zoning issues, section 3.030, the zoning resolution, each lot or tract must be provided a minimum abutment to a public road of 50 foot, 30 foot of abutment in a cul-de-sac. It appears that the applicant intends to provide each new lot and tract with either an extension of the existing roadway or construction of a new road for access, which is, some of the issues with Dewey Drive. Tracks 2, 3, and 4 have portions of acreage within the city, which the city has given that to the county for their jurisdiction. There's also 150 foot wide overhead TVA electrical line across the front of portions of lots 2 and 3, which does not appear to inhibit the building envelope. Under plat issues, he talks about the tract versus lot. They're all going to be considered part of a subdivision because there is a new road being added. The topography contours appear to illustrate a gradual descending drainage pattern beginning internally and generally draining towards Big Branch to the west of the parcel, but also northward and eastward in other places of the property. The development should ensure the natural drainage patterns will not be disrupted by development, as prescribed in section 4-102.602, and efforts made to install drainage culverts and ditching with at least a notation or illustration on the final plat. There are 2 fire hydrants located in proximity to the new track. The only one that may not be within the required distance is track number 3. Other than that, they appear to accommodate this development. Of course, there is concerns about Dewey Drive, what needs to be done with that. And let's see, it's going to be up to the Planning Commission. Mr. Chairman?
Okay. First issue I see is discrepancy in who's willing to serve the water.
Correct.
We've got to have
This is the 9th district. What is the will of the board? I mean, I don't,
How long would it take them to decide who does that? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
excuse me.
I assume each board would have to meet and discuss
Well,
this.
the Water Authority will give the rights to Sylvia Pond if they'll take it.
Looks like they want to make the money off of it, but I can't speak for them.
Right.
So I'm real dubious about, water's an awful big deal.
Correct.
and
I don't see how we could take any action until we have an answer
that's
from
what
them.
I'm saying.
You agree, Mr. Ford?
Yeah, I met with Matthew this week, the director of the Sylvia Pond Division. He's all for it.
Yeah.
Okay. They will service.
So you think this is something we can resolve by next meeting?
Absolutely. I'm assuming you just want a letter from him.
Yes, sir.
He'll service the whole.
They're
Yeah.
gonna-
Is this something,
At this time, yeah.
is this something you would like to table, or would you like for us to take action?
I'd like you to take action.
I thought so.
Board, we're very appreciative of, some of the stuff that you've done and your willingness to work with everyone on this issue with the roadway and stuff, but there's, I don't think that we can, I think there needs to be some more done between you and the county attorneys to get this situation with the road. We just put this off for another 30 days, that would give time to make some of that happen.
Mr. Whitero, is that in the form of a motion?
No, I'm speaking to Mr. Ford, right at the moment, and if he would just like to put this off for another month, just let him withdraw it and resubmit it for next month, and then maybe this road issue with Dewey Drive can be resolved by then.
You want to speak to that, David?
Well, at this point, the county is willing to extend Dewey Drive because it's 104 foot short. We know that.
Right.
But the county is not going to do anything to the cul-de-sac or Lloyd Lane because that's not county property.
Well, if the county does that, are there still issues with access to any of these?
Yes, there would be still issues with access to the 2 lots, correct.
So we would need to understand how that gets resolved.
Correct. When you look at this here, you see Dewey Drive goes off to the left on your blown up version of it. The county is willing to extend it to 104 foot. The county does not want to touch the cul-de-sac because it's not going to make it to 104 foot required. The road is still going to be short of what was dedicated back in 2009. So the county's willing to do that, but we're not going to touch the cul-de-sac or the other.
This body's learned a lot about once you approve a preliminary plat, what's entailed and the rights that go to the people requesting the approval of that plat. And had we not been perhaps sadder but wiser on that, I'd say, well, it's a preliminary plat, we'll catch it next month. But after that experience, I'm not comfortable particularly doing that.
There's no access issues or distance shortage on this plat.
That's correct. That's not.
If Lloyd Lane is not going to be part of the county's
That's not.
responsibility,
No.
then the property belongs to Mr. Ford because he bought everything that was remaining out of that undeveloped property. So the only issue is y'all extending Dewey Drive
And the county will do that.
and Mr. Ford dedicating a cul-de-sac off the property he owns. And
You'd be willing to finish the cul-de-sac up?
And that's what I'm referring to. There's got to be some stuff done between
So I hear you.
And I'm, believe me, I'm really wanting to try to resolve this with you in the most equitable, fashion.
So, and I appreciate that your efforts there, and I understand the position that the commission is in, that you have, been bitten by trying to do the right thing in the past. And it came back, and I don't want you to be in that position. I also ask you to understand, I didn't create this position over here.
Right.
As far as David has told me, the county attorney has absolutely made his decision. And
Jackie
absolutely,
was there. That's correctly what he said.
and absolutely, the highway department is understanding and they're good with it. So when David and I talked, there wasn't room for more discussion, or else I would have had that discussion. Because I asked him, and he was clear to me that this is a done deal. So what you're petitioning me to do, actually what you're saying you want to hold up is the approval of the preliminary plat. That you want me to go do something that the decision has already been made, as far as what I've been informed. Because I brought this to the attention of David weeks before the deadline to submit, because I knew this was going to be something that came up, so that it could get resolved before we submitted our preliminary plat.
It wasn't weeks before the deadline. It was the same day, I think, that Steve or Ron brought the plat in, which was 2 weeks ago. That was the deadline date.
Well, my issue would be who's gonna serve the water. That's my own.
I had to go talk to the
You
attorney.
had time to go talk, so I understand what you're saying, that, hey, we would like you, David, to go talk to them some more.
Yeah, well,
I think I can think of a Christmas present that's not gonna change.
Correct.
What kind?
I guess my concern, Mr. Ford, I know you're telling us the truth, and I have no question that you're not going to make an issue of any of this. You're going to do the right thing like you do. I guess it's my concern is for people I'll never meet. I'm just trying to think in the year 2065, when none of us are here, but this is a question, how can we help them resolve this crisis that's not a crisis for us, but could very well be for them?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate my colleagues' statements. I want to say that I met with Mr. Ford and Mr. Peeler out at the site this morning, and we hashed through a number of issues. It is true that the developer did not create the issue of access along Dewey Drive, and that was created by the county. However, the issue about a continuance from our other colleagues has to do with, although we have a reliable verbal statement that Sylvia is willing to take the water, as a planning commission, we need a documentary evidence of that before we can approve a map. And that's just, even if it's a reliable report from somebody we know, that's just not enough. I mean, we always have to have it in writing from the water company. I think that really puts us in a situation where even if we were willing to overlook the Dewey Drive issue, I'm not sure we can get over to a responsible approval of this map without a continuance just on that issue alone. That said, my view of the Dewey Drive solution from County Council is that it's not the best planning solution. It's not the best way to solve this problem. And I believe, and I think that if with Commissioner Peeler's invitation, if I got involved, I think we could find a way to satisfy the requirements of the law by moving Dewey Road a little bit over toward the middle and extending it no longer than we need to extend it. And if the developer is willing to put in a code compliant cul-de-sac in the center of this area rather than off to one side, that's a better solution. I'm willing to go to bat for the developer on that issue with County Council if I'm given the time to do so. And I think that given the fact that I don't think we can get out of a continuance based on the water issue, and I want to thank the developer for doing a division that has larger lots, and the work that he's done and the kind of vision he has for the site. I am in support of, and I'm willing to spend my time trying to get the best solution to the Dewey Drive issue by the next meeting. And I want to do that for you because you didn't create this issue, the county did, and so I feel like it's somewhat on our shoulders to help solve it.
Mr. Coleman, I'm of the same opinion. And that's why I asked Mr. Ford about who was going to serve the water. I know the issue of the road will be resolved at our cost, but not knowing who is going to serve it does pose a problem for us.
So then, let me shed a little bit of light on where this, tabling it, how it affects us as a business. We can't move forward on the south side of the development with TDOT until we have some type of support from this body saying, we will give you permission to do this, the county supports it. So there's no problem, nobody's mentioned anything about our access on Highway 70 that will service the south side of this development. That's the part that is, because TDOT is so long in their process, we're getting a driveway application, that's where we have the largest amount of construction, that's where time is of the essence of me. If the board says, hey, we can't get down with the north side because there's still some hashing out that needs to be done at Dewey Drive, I'm here to work on that. What I ask is don't encumber me on the south side where I'm stuck in the time chain of TDOT. Because right now TDOT is saying, we're ready to go. You just got to show us a deed and you got to show us a drawing and something that the county says it's okay.
But at this point, the water affects the whole subdivision.
That point right there, Michael Rogers says, hey, we can do this because that's where our hydrant is right there. We serve.
He says they're not going
Go
past the
west from
hydrant.
there.
He says they won't serve it. They want Tennessee's Sylvia Pond to do it. In his email that I got today.
Well, we are talking about a preliminary plat, right?
Correct.
So the letter came.
But you have to have water as part of the preliminary plat.
But there's water available with it.
If they'll service the whole, if they only want to service part of it, that doesn't do any good to Tennessee, the Highway 70 side.
But the letter of surety can be submitted for the final.
Correct,
plat.
but we don't have it at this point. If they'll take it at the preliminary without it, that's up to the commission.
Let me ask you this, if he does get a letter
Mhm.
before we meet again, can he turn that in and begin his process without us?
That's going to be up to the commission.
I have a question.
How would we word this stuff in a way that it could be valid for him to talk to TDOT? And then
Right, and he's right. TDOT won't do anything without approval by this body.
I know he's right too, and I also know that he's right when he says they're gonna take at the best, their process is not elaborate. So let's
Correct.
just say that.
But now if you decide you want to accept the preliminary, provided he provides a letter, from the Sylvia Pond that they will supply the whole subdivision, that's strictly up to you.
I'm wondering if that's a legitimate motion, because I'm inclined to favor it if it is, but
Yeah, I have a question about that. Can we condition approval of a preliminary map on the documented evidence of one of the water companies willing to serve the entire subdivision? Can we legally do
I
that?
don't know.
Well, I would say that one of the two entities have to serve it because if I'm not incorrect, that falls in that target area that has to be, quote, city water.
Correct.
oh yeah,
Right.
that's for sure.
Because if we can do
I
it,
don't
I
have a
would
problem.
support, I would support an approval if we can place a condition that evidence of water service for the entire subdivision be provided. And by evidence, I mean from the water company, as well as a condition that says that we'll get a new preliminary map that shows us, a revised preliminary map that shows us whatever the solution is on Dewey Drive is. If the solution is as the county currently envisions it, we still don't have a map showing us that. And I think we have a right to see it. But for the fact that this issue was not caused by the developer, I'd be willing to support an approval on those two conditions.
Would you restate, is that a motion
not
or is
making the
that just a
motion yet.
recommendation?
Okay, with Commissioner Peeler, I'll put it in the form of a motion. I move that we approve the preliminary plat for White Oak subdivision with the conditions that, one, that the developer provide or the water company provide written evidence of the water company's willingness to serve the entire subdivision. And the second condition, that a revised preliminary map be brought to this body once the Dewey Drive access is resolved, so that we have a preliminary map that shows that access as it's going to be developed, so we can check it against the final map.
Okay. Would you agree to saying one of the two water providers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, with that friendly amendment, I make my motion.
Okay, I have a proper motion by Robert Comer to accept the preliminary plat of the White Oak subdivision with the approval letter of one of the two water providers, one of the two providing water to this subdivision, and the agreement upon the county of resolving the cul-de-sac issue.
Another preliminary plat. Basically, you could start that, but the next month we try to get everything worked out and have a new preliminary plat with everything on there. Does that sound reasonable? That way you can still work.
It's very reasonable to me.
That way you can still work with TDOT.
Yes. We need to do a business.
Correct.
When y'all are finished with that though, I wanna interrupt that. I like it. So we'll get back to me when you finish with it.
Okay, yeah, are we clear on, I mean, I know it's clear as mud,
So
but
they'll
are
bring
the,
back a new preliminary
pretty
plat
clear.
next month. Hopefully we'll have the issues with the Dewey Drive Road corrected in a letter from the thing, but that way he has the right to get with TDOT and go ahead and continue working on that.
So what if we don't get those two things in time for the next month's meeting? It just goes on to the next month after
Correct.
that?
We have 60 days, technically, yes.
okay,
So we're
Mr.
not really deferring it. You're making a decision on it.
Right.
Mr.
But it's
Woodrow,
based on the,
I will second the motion, and I would also like to yield to Mr. Ford for further discussion.
okay, we got a proper motion and a proper second. We'll move into discussion and I guess let Mr. Ford discuss.
Mr. Ford to elaborate.
The first thing I do is thank you for all of your attention and effort to this. Thank you for understanding that there's a financial responsibility we have with the business that we need to move forward and recognizing the significance of that. I love the idea that you're talking about. I need a little more direction over what you guys envision is the ideal thing for Dewey Road. Because I have to go talk to the county highway department and talk to the county attorney. And I want to make sure I'm not saying, hey, let's do this. And it's not exactly what I want, because there are multiple options there.
I think what we'll have to do, we'll have to meet again with Brian. You wanting to just run it straight through the cul-de-sac, the distance, put a new cul-de-sac there.
Steve has a rendering right here that he drew that is a great illustration.
Is
That I would love for you guys to be able to see. We've been working on this like at 6:30 tonight. Steve was trying to get this ready for y'all. So we have it prepared. We haven't given it yet, but I think it's much easier for us to show you this and say, this is what the county's proposing. This is what we propose. And then y'all can say, go do that, David. And I'll go get started with it.
This is exactly what I was trying to say earlier.
Well, is this anything that we can do until you meet with the highway superintendent and the attorneys
We'll have to
and they
meet.
tell you what legally we can do?
They told me they've already decided.
Right.
Well, that's
That's what he decided at that time.
the issue is that even if, you know, I and a group of my colleagues and staff get together and we redesign it and we all like it, until the county council says that it can be done legally,
Correct.
that exercise is for naught.
Correct.
So I'm going to, while I appreciate that work and I look forward to seeing that drawing and I look forward to going to bat for you on this issue, because I will go to bat for you on this issue with county council. I'm not going to do it tonight. But we are going to do it and we're going to do it soon.
Okay, so we're looking at a preliminary plat that has two big questions that still
Correct.
need to be answered.
Yes.
So I would call that an incomplete plat. And let me remind you that maybe 2 or 3 months ago, we denied two
Correct.
plats because they were incomplete.
Correct.
So this board needs to be consistent.
I agree with you, Mr. Williams, but one of these issues was created not by him. But with
But
this
one of
road,
them-
with the road issue.
But
And-
one is
And
part of the developer's issue.
Well, I would go up to bat to say that issue is going to be resolved because one of the two water
They'll have to,
entities is
yeah.
going to have to accept it. They can't deny him water because that's the targeted area.
I think the difference is there's greater certainty on the one issue with regard to water as to how it will be resolved. The second issue is unique in the sense that the county created a hardship on this subdivision that I think the county has to be willing to take some risk in solving. And so that's how I see it as different than some of the more some of those other issues that you mentioned, Mr. Williams. Thank you. But I appreciate that view that we do need to be consistent, and I appreciate that view. I do just see this as well. I couldn't see your name tag. All right. So I just see it as different in this case. I'm willing to make an exception in this case with these conditions.
And
David.
I agree with Mr. Williams that we have guidelines to go by. And just because we're at fault, we shouldn't make special exceptions, but I don't know how we can hold somebody up as well. But what we do for one, we should do for all.
I agree. We don't want to set the wrong precedents here. I agree with what Harold's saying. We've got to be consistent. I also understand that, David, and we do appreciate what you've done on this plat. I like the looks of this plat. But as he's saying, the county did create this mess. We've got to do something to make this right. I think it's within our power to make it right to a point, and that is, in my opinion, a special exception.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
David, TDOT won't even talk to you till you get this approval letter from us. Is that correct?
Yes.
I actually met with the Region 3 engineer today. I don't know how, but I mean, he made time for me. And he said he would get us a letter that would grant us temporary entrance so that we could be in construction within a day or two of me turning around the things he needs, the application, the deed, and a letter from the county saying they support it. I thought I was going to be in for a 6-month process, and today at 10 o'clock, we had a good stroke of luck. So all of a sudden now our timeline is in a much better position. So TDOT will not let me do anything there without some type of approval from the county. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, in general, they're okay with having an access point right there. That's a bad area right there. I mean, it's pretty dangerous.
It's almost 400 feet. Looking
Okay.
to the west, it's over 300 feet, like 313. The posted speed limit is 30 miles per hour. And it's on the signs there for anyway, it's posted. And he said, that's an issue for the sheriff's department and the police department. He said, I have to deal with this all the time where people say this intersection is dangerous, but people are excessively speeding. He said, I can reduce the speed limit, but he said, if they're already speeding, he said, that change, because we're still on the side of the road. Cars are going by at 45 and 50 miles an hour. It says there's an intersection there. It says it's 30 miles per hour there. On the Dickson side, it says 45. But nonetheless, it's compliant with the county's sight distance for that type of speed limit. So other than that, he said that he didn't have any issues with it. Let's see, there was the sight distance and he said like a traffic study. He said there's only going to be 5 houses there.
Yep.
So he said he didn't see any remote need or anything like that. So those are the 2 things that I think were the biggest point for him. We talked some grading issues and some right of way. He said that he didn't feel like that he had any reason to hold me back.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
I'm sorry.
It does. It does.
David, how quickly, I would assume you could have a letter quickly from Sylvia tomorrow.
I think I could go, yeah.
I mean, you obviously talked to Matthew, he's in agreement. So I think it's reasonable to say that also. Okay.
David, have you reached out to the Sullivans yet about?
Yes.
And what was their?
I met with Miss Sullivan today, and she.
And can you explain why you was meeting with her?
Miss Sullivan, do they have a?
I have a copy of the plat, yes.
Miss Sullivan is a property owner that, that my property is on the east and west side of Highway 70. So if you look at the Highway 70 access, the Sullivans own the property between the 2 access points to this property. And I talked to Miss Sullivan today, and she's the owner, because I said I was willing to give her the west side of my property that accesses Highway 70, if she was willing to give me 50 feet on the east side, so that it would allow me a wider entry, allow the county and a wider entrance for us to build the road going in at the most optimal site. So it would scoot it away from the house, it would make a little further distance from the house. It's actually there and existing next to the property now on the east side. And it wouldn't change anything for Ms. Sullivan, because it's basically wooded area that she's not using versus my western access is yard that's being maintained.
It would just push the whole thing west a little bit. East, okay.
He would center that road in that 100 foot.
Right, yeah, that, yeah.
Instead of having it all the way up.
Yeah, she said she wanted her son to look at it, and I said, yes, ma'am. So I left her a copy of the plat, I explained to her that I would pay for any surveying or recording or any of that stuff. She was very coherent about what was going on, and, I thought it was very reasonable for her to say, I'll think about it for a few days. But she did say that she didn't want somebody making access like via that western side that I have. And I said, I don't want to do it, you know, let's work something out. So she was, she just wanted to kind of think about it and talk to her son. And I don't know, maybe some other people, but I did talk to her today, and that was what came with that conversation.
All right, we have a proper motion and a second.
Shane, I'm gonna not vote since I represent Mr. Ford, one of my clients.
Okay, so you're gonna abstain.
I'm gonna abstain.
So we currently have one abstention. All those in favor of the approval of preliminary plat for White Oak subdivision, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have one nay, Harold Williams,
That's two
one
noes.
abstention, Christie Sullivan. And Wayne Durham, you're a nay or an abstention?
I'm a no.
You're a no.
Yep.
Harold and Wayne.
Harold and Wayne. Motion still carries.
Motion carries. Like I say, I would have rather seen this wait another 30 days and got everything in line, because we have denied people for pretty much the same thing.
But they will have a new.
Yes, sir. Yes.
That always been my understanding, it was very flat where we address all this. Water is available. We get the final flat status, that's where a lot of this information addressed, but there's always a period between the preliminary final construction and all these areas take place. So it's really a final. Or is it? I just want to know for future use.
Well, they're not gonna approve a preliminary if no water's gonna be, it's an issue.
But there's no issue because water is available by 2 service providers.
It has to be.
Yeah, so it's.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only reason I voted to go ahead and make action, is because somebody has to accept it.
Yeah, I just wanted to use it because usually we gotta extend the line 900 feet to it, and it's not easy because we have service.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to bring before the board? We have no other action items. Looks like next scheduled meeting will be Thursday, July the 8th, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, we've got a committee that's working on some land use and some other issues. And we'll be meeting at 5:30. But all of this planning commission is invited for input, because there is several issues. This is gonna be, there's several issues, and it's not gonna be a quick fix. It's gonna take several months to get this done.
Okay. So, I'd like to thank everybody for bearing with me with my hacking cough. Meeting adjourned.